Thanks very much, Florencio. Sorry to be, as they say, between lunch and this last session. We'll try and make it as dynamic as possible. I'm going to call to the table to 5 people so that we, instead of having a couple, we have a sextet here. First person is Phelim O'Connor, please. I'm not going to introduce those who have already spoken. I'll only introduce the last one who has not spoken yet. Patricia Molina, please. Angelo Giordano. Magdalena. And finally, I'd like to ask Rosa, Rosa Hemes. She is the owner of Synergicom Agency for Sustainability and Innovation. Rosa is expert in energy efficiency and has a strong experience in climate protection strategies, including renewable energies, eco-mobility, sustainable communities, energy efficiency, and participatory concepts and innovative strategies for cities. She has been leading refurbishment activities in Aachen as part of the EU-GUGLE project in partnership with local authorities, utility and social housing companies. Okay, I must confess that my head is burning, really. After this morning, we've heard so many things. I have hundreds of questions, but I'll try and systematize a bit what I would like to have in the discussion here. We have like half an hour. Florencio, am I right? Okay. First, I would like to express the way I see the sector and the future somehow, so that I frame a bit the discussion I want to have. And then I'll suggest different questions that maybe someone of you is more suited or best suited to answer, but please feel free. I don't think we should make this too strict in that sense. I was coordinator of the Build Upon project, which was a European project, Horizon 2020, to help national authorities with the national renovation strategies. The conclusion of this project was that the sector, the society, the administration, everything was totally dysfunctional for this purpose. Now here we are in a conference with the subtitle Cities at the Heart of the Energy Transition, and that is absolutely true. Because these matters are in the agenda, we saw it this morning, but are not high in the agenda. The political discussion is mostly about many other things. You may see a reasonable exception of the European Union because it's not, it's a higher level, but when you come down to nations, this is very low in the agenda, frankly. And what we are going to be discussing here is Sustainable Urban Planning versus Reality. The only title suggests very directly that sustainable urban planning is really far away from reality. One of the first things is that we've heard this morning that urban planning, when you conclude your urban planning, the problems have changed. and that's a tremendous reality that happens all the time. But we have a problem. We are supposed to transpose the EPBD in 1 year's time, 14 months in March 2020, and also to define our national renovation strategies. So the question here is how to do things with such an imperfect, because, we really need a new discipline in urban planning. We also heard the expression urban renaissance. I do believe that things are happening, and things are happening in the cities. So how we work with this imperfect instruments, how can we progress very quickly, gradually growing and so on with such imperfect instruments? So many things should change quickly. So we cannot, I hear a lot here about technology, and in some places I hear it not enough, but we need to really find shortcuts. The key thing here is what could be a shortcut to really make things improve. My personal view is citizens. I was playing with the name, and I thought I could say, my name is Zen, City Zen, or something like that. As James Bond. My name is Bond, James Bond. My name is Zen, City Zen. To see, we realize who we are. So I not only think of it, but I said it, sorry. So we need to define new ways of doing things. We cannot go on with the traditional solutions. So first question, I'm going to state all the questions in a row and then you answer, but this could be addressed to Feilim, because we see, for instance, that the new Horizon Europe and so on, in my point of view, it doesn't recognize the need, you've said it, for all this technology to reach the citizen. And there are no spaces where you can do that. This is the way I see it. So it should be change in that. Communication is essential. It's not awareness. I mean, we don't need to indoctrinate the citizens. We really need to interest them. And this is a key point. What we have in our hands is not interesting at all, much less for the young people. Do you think they are thinking this is a problem? And they are the ones who are going to have the problem. So communication, please. So we need that space. A question that could go to Patricia about the renaissance of this discipline and how to manage, how to really have a shortcut in time. If we do plans the same way, we are never going to get there. You've analyzed the situation, and the conclusion is that we need very many instruments. Could that be done in a different way? Because regarding communication, I think what we do all the time is to repeat the same message, more slowly and louder. But maybe we need to gesticulate, to do it in a different way so that we can reach people. Okay, about financial instruments, Angelo, I do have the feeling that if we had demand, the problem about financial instruments would be non-existent, because money always flows very easily after demand. But I also have the feeling in your analysis that we really need a new economy, because actually we are playing we go on playing in a business as usual background, and actually we all acknowledge that the economy is not taking into account things, for instance, such as the future. I mean, if you do your accounts in a short term, if you do your accounts, I mean, if you had someone in the table who really, and there are some very young people who are doing that, we saw that at COP24, asking, what's in your accounts for me? Then the whole thing would change. About, is the industry ready for smart citizens? We saw and build upon that, very, very, very little innovation actually from the industry. Because basically the idea is to go on, and of course it exists, and you've shown some examples. It is there. But how could we make that explode? And you were speaking about capacity. I think that capacity is a very severe problem, because I think this is going to happen, and I think it might even happen very quickly. Not hugely quickly, but we are saying if we had to renovate 100,000 dwellings in Spain next year, it would be a total chaos. So how to innovate also socially to progress. And finally, I like this, Rosa, maybe this structure you have here could be a way for this shortcut, so that you do a very actual, very practical job on the city, working with the actors directly and so on, instead of waiting for a planning and all this type of thing. So basically this is the background, and now please answer maybe is not the word. Tell me your views on this. Thanks very much. So who wants to jump in first? Felim? Okay.
Well, seeing as I was asked first, I can answer first. I know for me today it was really interesting to hear about the different types of communication. I think it was in almost every presentation that someone said that communication is key.
It is always there, yeah.
Putting the citizen at the center is key. I guess when I think about communication, since I work at the Commission, maybe I have the best experience with bad communication a lot of the time. The Commission always makes the classic mistake of trying to communicate to everybody at once and then really oversimplifying the messages to the extent that people just don't really engage with them. And I think most people these days are extremely savvy when it comes to any type of advertising. We can spot immediately something that's an ad and something that's genuine. So I see communication kind of being split into different categories depending on the person you're trying to target. So I thought the presentation today on using art as communication was really interesting. I think that's a way of getting people to engage without forcing it into them. Sure. But then from my own personal perspective, and I like to get presentations that's a little bit more technical, I like listening to podcasts, or I like watching web streaming of different lectures.
But it's always within the technological bubble. You don't reach the citizen with that. I mean, I'm speaking about pure communication projects to reach the citizen. Not to create awareness, but to create interest, which is different from the projects. So many projects and so on, so poly-connected. Yeah. And this is something we could exploit better, and we are not doing that. So this is, but also because there is no space for such a proposal in the call.
As a specific communication project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually a subset within a given project that communication. But I think usually communication it's a key area within a project, but we rely on proposals to come forward with non-generic ideas. It's very easy to put together a generic communication plan versus one that's very well thought through. But this is kind of a mixture between the terms of reference for the people who are applying and the people who apply.
Okay, maybe a new type of project could be communication. After you conclude this one, there's another project that communicates this and others, or something like that. We were discussing this possibility. Who want to go first?
I want to also to be linked with the communication purpose, just because I list several things. So at smart city level, taking care of the visual, communication means engagement. So, and we in our project under the European Commission umbrella, we deploy a lot of activity for the engagement. This is not only dissemination, communication, and awareness, but it's also engagement, actively engagement. Because the thing is, coming back to the financing, engagement means also trying on your skin, which could be or could be the real benefits. And in fact, I want to underline use cases. So a lot of multi-utility companies use the gamification, but also the engagement of the users with the bills, but also with the real data consuming, but also rational choice of their way of consuming. This is very linked because when we talk about the visual, we have to take care of the next generation that are the millennials, but also my generation. But we have to take care also the people who currently are still alive. For example, my grandfather that is very addicted to the technologies. Yes, it's very. He paid a lot of attention to the balance of the bill, and also to the new instrument that the multitude gave him to give new youngerness to him. And while concerning the financial ethics, I think that it's very emerging trend in changing some key performance indicators in the capital requirement activities. They decrease the return of investment, they settle the debt service coverage ratio for the investment project, they start to understanding how hidden social benefits could be quantified in monetary terms, also putting in their balance, because from a side they are obliged to invest and to earn money, but from another side they are very pushing in try to become it more ethics. So this is. This could be interesting for but the terms or reference are the main urban authority, because without the main urban authority umbrella, it's a little bit complicated, the process. It's only one-to-one. Could not generate economy of scale or replicability, because we have also very addicted in the project with not only communication business plan and so on, but also for the replicability and scalability of the actions. It's very interesting capturing the value.
Thank you. Patricia?
Yes, so your question, yeah? On what do we do with urban planning as it is now, because it seems quite dysfunctional to the reality we live in. I totally agree, and I think there's not a lot of room for innovation there. I think technologies have not been yet applied to urban planning as it is. We've seen a lot of smart city platforms taking a lot of data, but it's mostly used for management of the city, for real-time management, not for long-time permanent, planning, like for the vision. So I think there is a lot of work to do there. We are trying to do that right now in Tecnalia. And I think we can, because we will also need to review our current legislation on what urban planning is, how often should it be revised. So I think in Spain right now, municipalities draft their plans and they are there for 10, 15, 20 years. They keep modifying them, but not completely reviewing them. So I think regulations should change so that we can actually make the most of current technologies. We don't need any new technologies. We can use all the data that's there to actually maybe review every year or every two years what's going on. We can monitor what's going on and then make decisions. Of course, decisions are going to finally be a political decision with a lot of stakeholders engaged, but we can rely in a lot of data, and we're not doing that at the moment. So I think there's a lot of room for that, which requires normative changes in the normative and making the most of existing technologies for planning.
You speak about data. That's one of the key problems, but we should not allow that to be paralyzing, because if not, we are lost. I think we need to strike up a data gathering revolution and so on.
I think we have enough.
But that should not be too important. So to say, we should be clear with the next steps and so on, and so that we can grow. Because otherwise, if we wait to have the data or to have the society willing to, and public servants, etc. Magdalena, please.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Industry and innovation.
Sorry if I say some.
No. No. I think that particularly talking about the Acciona experience, every project of Acciona, I think, has an ingredient of innovation.
Yes. I'm saying it to the wrong person, I know.
But yes, it's true that it's not easy for the industrial sector to really implement it. And I have also depend on how do you understand innovation, because innovation could be really innovative technological product to be integrated, or it could be the way of integrating of something that is really state of the art on the market. But it's really also such a challenging, and that challenge is also innovative, I think. This was a case of that district heating integrated in really dense structure of the historical city. Yeah. There are such a lot of the problems that the engineer have to face to do that in the correct way, and not to stop the city for a half of a year, because this is also not smart. But definitely it's not easy. The first example I presented, it was such an innovative facade system. It was also energy efficient, because we have monitored that. It was supporting retrofitting with that energy efficiency ingredient. But it was. But whole process was such complex. There was a part on testing that was really costful. That was a part on administrative and legal, where that system and that material we integrated into the system was not reflected in any of the normative. We had to look for definition of that program to know with which normative to test it and to certify it. So I would say, if there is not a team behind of the process, it's really hard, not only for industry, but for any of the player to integrate it. It has to be a team with a strong leader, and also we cannot forget that for industrial sector, economic reason is really important one. We really follow the client requirements. If there is not a client behind of the process that wants to product in mass, or even it's not a really emblematic project because of any reason, it's really hard to follow this process, because there is an economic limit and timing limit also. Don't forget that the research process really require long time process of research, of testing, of integrating, of changing, and in many times industrial sector has no that time to dedicate it only for one singular project. So if there is team behind of that, it would be easier for sure. If there is a support on administrative part, it also would be really easier. If there is a team that somehow prevent some actions, and there is a research behind that, we can take advantages and knowledge and directly integrate it. So it's also a different story for us. So I would insist on teams with strong leader, and I think innovative products would be more visible on market, I think.
Yeah, I know the difficulty for many years. I've been trying to push these things, and in the 90s I did a renovation of 3 blocks of dwellings and so on. That was the first and the last time that a client of mine hugged me in the street. So, but the situation was that they were on hunger strike because they wanted to have their building renovated. That was a different moment than now.
Yeah.
How could we have all the population asking for renovation like that? that could make a change. That would move very many things. You would not need support.
Yeah, but we have an experience, really positive one, that is possible to discuss between the different, not only sectors, because also dwellers are in it, because they have to be willed to innovate
they
and to put
identify,
their money also there.
Yeah.
So if they are supported by administrative public sector with that subvention, or this is also easier, and they require that innovation. If clients require that innovation, industrial sector for sure is going to go after that, because this is a requirement.
Yeah, sure.
And it is possible. Win-win model is possible, I think, and it's possible to create really constructive teams, collaborative teams between the partners that have nothing to do with that have completely different objectives.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very clear message. We have a lot of intelligence, but very poorly coordinated in many cases. So, Rosa, maybe you can tell us about your experience as well, and how we could have a shortcut to this new renaissance of urban planning by putting together key actors and so on.
Yes, if you try to realize integrated solutions on the local level, then you have to deal with partners and actors that have different agendas normally. Yes, they have different priorities. Of course, in Aachen, in our city, and also in other cities of our project, they have climate programs, or they have energy programs where the municipality is committed to. But anyway, the actors in our place, the housing company, the energy company, and the city of Aachen, they have different priorities. And in our project, there was a very good task, because we said we will reach a certain amount of energy saving and CO2 saving with the renovation works we are going to do. So we had a goal, and we had to stick together and discuss how can we reach this goal. That means the housing company and the city of Aachen and the energy company, they did not make their separated agendas or programs. They had that, but then they had to look how can we reach it, and how have we to change our plannings a little bit, yes, so that we can get to realize that goal. In a normal way, they would not do that like that, yes, because they do not have this goal. And that was a very good experience, yes, that it is over such a long time, it is 6 years, and that means in the municipal area, yes, you have political changes, you have changes in the CEOs of the housing company, you have changes in the structure of the energy company, and always you had to deal with new persons, yes, and then anyway you had this goal and you had this program and you had to look how can we do that, and that was really that what we learned. You need to have for quartiers or for municipal sustainability strategies, you need a framework, you need a frame and a goal, so that all stakeholders and all people who are acting, you need to realize that they can work together under this program. But they must be free to make their own best things. Yes, they must be able to realize their innovative new ideas. And in the moment we have it was told this morning very often, restrictive regulations. You have plans that are necessary, but they are not flexible enough. Yes, and I think we must we must working on methodologics approaches and dialogue approaches to something like a sustainable controlling and so on, so that we can work quicker, that we can work more flexible to use all that what we have in all these projects, the results we have, that they must come to the practice on the local level.
Thanks very much. This collaborative approach is totally essential. I think they should start by sharing the values. This is something we don't normally do, or we think we share values, but we don't. Here in Spain, we have a political dialogue, which is, I mean, dialogue should be something where you speak to someone thinking that that person may be right. See, in the political arena in Spain, the other person is always wrong. So this way you never get to any point, and there's confrontation, and we are losing a huge amount of time. So to conclude, I think one of the things that strikes me from a thermal analysis point of view is that if you analyze a city very quickly, you find that are huge amounts of energy that is not used. For instance, the heat of underground. That is like sitting on a gold mine and it is not used. We are starting to use a bit of the heat of the sun and so on. Another source that is totally thrown away in cities is water, and it is essential. I mean, we throw away huge amounts of water in the cities, and that could help create microclimates in combination with vegetation and so on, symbiosis. Vegetable symbiosis or something like that. So I think the renaissance, this renaissance of urban planning should, I mean, in the past, when, I don't know, the classical cities had the sun in mind and so on, they didn't need to have more, but maybe now we need more things. And I would like to connect this as a final conclusion with the situation in Europe, which is comparatively very good. In our urban situation, our cities do not have the problems that we find in other places of the world, and we do have the Mediterranean tradition, urban tradition, which is something that we should really explode or exploit in combination with new ideas. So we really need coordination, a view. Yeah. Europe needs to survive somehow, and urban planning could be a way for that, because the world is going to eat us if we don't react very quickly. Thanks very much. Big effort waiting until this moment. Now, if you allow me, Florencio, the lunch is served, or something like that.